The following is a special presentation of TNN Sports. Las Vegas Boulevard, known as the Strip, filled with high-dollar action, where dreamers bet against the odds, looking to cash out on top. Today, those dreamers are the stars of the NHRA. Rolling at speeds over 300 miles an hour. Vying for the jackpot in the inaugural Summitracing.com Nationals. It's coming your way from the Strip at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It is racing's newest crown jewel in the Nevada desert. You are looking at the Strip at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's opening weekend, and the NHRA is coming to you on TNN Sports. The Summitracing.com Nationals is here in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is a simply magnificent day for this magnificent setting. Temperature 85 degrees. The weatherman says it could well creep over the 90-degree mark before the day is done. And certainly in a community where big dollars are always the big story, we are seeing nearly $1.8 million on the line today out of the $45 million purse that make up the 23 races in the NHRA Winston Drag Racing Series. Top fuel points. They are tight, as you'd expect, just 3 races in. But some big stories are going to be unfolding here today, and you've got the best seat in the house. Take a look at the next group of 5 as the point standings shake down with Doug Coletta, Bob Vandergriff, Doug Herbert, Corey McLenithan, and Don Lampus. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway and the Strip. Eli Gold, along with the Chi-Town hustler, Frank Hawley. Now, Frank, over the years, we have seen Bristol open up. We have seen a lot of new racetracks open up for the NHRA Winston Drag Racing scene. What are these competitors having to deal with here this weekend on an unproven quarter mile?
Well, of course, all the drag strips are a quarter mile long and 60 feet wide, and the walls are the same. Right. And this is no different. But what is different is that it's a brand new racetrack. Now, the first part of the racetrack is all concrete, so that's pretty easy to duplicate from one track to the other. But it's the asphalt, the last part of the racetrack, that's difficult to make exactly the same. In fact, I've even heard stories where they would import the components from one state to another to try and duplicate really good asphalt. Right. So we're going to need a lot of race cars down this track in order to get good performance.
Now, one thing is the same here this weekend as at any other racetrack. Some guys have figured it out right off the bat, and others have not. Take a look at the qualifying order and see how your favorite is done. For Kenny Bernstein, the 51st time ever that he has been the #1 qualifier. Melanie Troxel has been wonderfully successful and popular here this weekend. The second group of 16 who have made it in top fuel include some very interesting names, and of course veterans including Doug Coletta, fresh off a victory last time out, and Bobby Baldwin bringing up the number 16 spot. Now, we have already seen round 1 competition take place. Here's how the ladders work through one round already complete. Advancing are Kenny Bernstein. Now, Tony Schumacher advanced only because Tim Gibson, who actually won the round, was found to have had unapproved fuel. That new 90% rule, 90% of nitromethane is all you're allowed. He was over the limit, so that gave the win to Schumacher. And there you see the others who have also advanced through round 1 of competition. Let's take you back now, and Frank, let's rehash what was a very interesting and scary run for the man on the near side, Doug Herbert.
Well, Herbert's racing Dixon here in the first round of competition. He's actually out in front looking pretty good in a half track, spins the tires, and then has a huge explosion, a lot of sparks, blew a tire out, and was very, very fortunate to keep that car at Dixon's lane and in the center of the track, and he was okay.
Now, we also told you a short while ago how Tony Schumacher lost to Tim Gibson. Here's how the run looked. But again, Schumacher was given the win after Gibson was found to have 90.4% nitro. He wasn't cheating. It was just a mistake.
No, they have to draw the line somewhere. It's 90%, and the way they measure it from the temperature of the air can even change. And they just made a miscalculation was all.
Third member of our broadcast crew this season, as in years past, Steve Evans, who's here in Las Vegas. He has an update on the #1 qualifier, Kenny Bernstein.
Thanks, Eli. You Kenny Bernstein fans will be happy to know morale is high in the Bud King pits, and it should be. Now, Kenny hasn't won on the National Event Trail in 26 starts over a full calendar year. But Friday, they roared in here with a brand-new Brad Hadman car. So new Kenny had not even sat in it until they warmed it up, and promptly took the #1 qualifying position with a stunning 4.63 second elapsed time. They beat Bobby Bolden in round #1, but performance fell off to a 4.73 because they're making so much power, and the clutch was maybe a little tight. They were smoking the giant Goodyear tires. So they've got to find that power balance to contend with some of the 60s recorded by Gary Selzy and Corey Mack. Eli?
Steve, thank you very much. We'll, of course, follow the exploits of Kenny Bernstein. A magnificent day. Doesn't matter if you're a youngster, an oldster, or anywhere in between. There's something for you here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We're back with the funny car picture next. As you'd expect here in Glitter Gulch, it's a great crowd for NHRA Winston Drag Racing opening weekend of this magnificent strip here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Time now to update you on funny car doings. Let's first check out the points. Bring you up to speed through 3 races this year. Jerry Tolliver has just been skunking the series.
Well, I'll tell you, seeing John Force in second place is something new for a lot of these race fans.
Hey, it's new for Force. He's been kind of ticked off about it. Look and see how your favorite is doing. Al Hoffman in there at number 10 in the Moon Eyes machine for Jim Dunn. Now, taking a look at qualifying order for this weekend. See if your favorite made it into the top 16. No major surprises. Yeah, right. Todd Payton, second time out of the box. He's #1 qualifier.
And as a fellow Canadian, I feel quite proud of Todd. He's doing a great job.
We've had to sing "Oh Canada" up here in the booth 3 times already today, folks. There you see Kristen Powell is in. Tolliver, number 14 qualifier, and Bob Gilbertson also making the field. Now, round 1 is already complete. Let's see who has advanced and who has not here at Las Vegas. Gilbertson thought he'd be able to pull off an upset, but Todd Payton got by him. Tony Pedregon, Tim Wilkerson gets the win, and John Force and Cannon. We're going to look at that highlight in a moment. That was a good run.
On this side, you can see Hoffman moved in. He was one of the other cars that has a lot of potential to fly and maybe win this race.
But the big story, obviously, the fact the #1 man in points. He's been so hot, Jerry Tolliver, just not making it through round #1.
What's so difficult about this, so good for Scusa, of course, is to win the round of competition. But a lot of people will say, well, it's early in the year, so the points don't matter that much. The points count the same amount for a round win, whether it's early or late in the year. And this first round loss is going to come back and bite them.
And 2 of the NHRA's most unusual personalities, John Force and Scotty Cannon, head-to-head.
John Force, they didn't qualify all that well. They struggled a little bit, lost a few qualifying runs, but Austin Coyle came back and did an excellent job, gave him a good car for that first round.
Steve Evans, obviously, though, probably the biggest story of the day and the weekend has to be Todd Payton getting in there as #1 qualifier.
Well, folks, there are 2 wonderful stories in the funny car pits here in Las Vegas, and they are at opposite ends of the age and experience spectrum. First of all, let's talk about the young Canadian from Toronto. That would be Todd Payton. He drove his first Nitro funny car race a few weeks ago in Gainesville, Florida, qualified for and went to the semis. Here this weekend, he stunned the crowd, taking the #1 qualifying spot at 4.94 seconds. He beat Bob Gilbertson earlier today in round 1 with a solid 5 flat. I mean, this team is on a roll, the Nitro Fish, as they call it. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, how about the grumpy old men? Al Hoffman and Jim Dunn teamed up to put out Whit Bazemore in round #1 with the second best elapsed time of the weekend, 4.95. This is going to get really interesting. Eli?
And thank you to our own grumpy old, well, no, Steve's not grumpy. Steve's not old.
He smiles all the time. He's a nice guy. Steve's not grumpy.
Steve is a nice guy. We're back to the strip where all the green is about to wave. Welcome back, everybody. Second round action here at the strip at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. About to come your way. And by the way, talking about speed, you need to check out one of the hottest new shows on TV. See how federal agent Lucky Vanis brings in the bad guys with his high-speed, high-tech big rig. Catch 18 Wheels of Justice every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. It's a part of TNN's Action Wednesdays. Eli Gold, Frank Hawley, Steve Evans, David Grubnick, and Joe Amato about set to go here at Las Vegas. For Grubnick, after failing to start in Gainesville, had that big engine explosion in the final qualifying run on Saturday of that weekend. This has been a sweet return to competition. And, of course, Joe Amato, currently 4th in the NHRA Winston Drag Racing points for Top Fuel.
This is going to be a real interesting battle. Amato, clearly the favorite here, got off and on the throttle because the car spun the tires in the first round of eliminations and still ran 4.84 seconds, which is about equal to what Grubnick had done earlier in the weekend. So we're looking for Amato. He's taking the other side of the racetrack, opposite of what he did in the first round of competition. I think Amato's the car to watch right now.
Joe Amato lost in the second round at both Phoenix and Gainesville, trying to advance here in Las Vegas. Up goes Grubnick. Amato, less than a clean pass, but he's taking it on to the next round.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do, of course. The car left the starting line quite well. They softened it up a little bit because they had spun the tires earlier. It had a .88 60-foot time, which is a little slow, but you can see it spinning the tires as it gets down the track.
Take a look at it again, coming at you.
Grubnick, of course, just lost traction immediately. The run was over for him. You can see Amato about 300 or 400 feet down the track fighting to control the car. That's actually smoking the tires. You can see the track, the black strips of rubber on the racetrack. He's not going to be incredibly pleased with the fact that the car spun the tires and slowed down, although they're going to be happy with that round of competition.
Frank, back to what we had talked about earlier. How long before a new racetrack, I guess due to the lack of a better term, is cured, becomes a veteran track?
You know, some tracks never get good, but I don't suspect that's what's going to happen here. And they're going to get a lot of cars down the track. What we've got right now is we've got some new asphalt further down the racetrack. We've got some pretty hot conditions out there, and that makes it a really tiny bit slippery, as it does with all race cars.
Steve, Snoopy's keeper has advanced.
Amato's 300th round win. That's 301, but this is a tricky racetrack.
Yeah, we're working hard at it. You know, the sun's out. We haven't had this kind of temperature on the track all year. It's a great facility, but you know, with the 90% nitro and the hot track, it's making everybody crazy.
And smoking the tires.
So Amato said a mouthful as you look at the number 3 man in points, Larry Dixon. Lost in round 2 at Gainesville, but he's been very consistent in general. They've been going rounds this year. And he'll be facing Corey McLenithan, who is currently 9th in Top Fuel points for NHRA Winston Drag Racing honors. As he gets set to square off against him, Corey Mack. Last year you saw him win the U.S. Nationals here on TNN Sports.
And you know what these crew chiefs are doing is they're watching the cars run before them. They're going to be carefully analyzing the lanes. They're going to say, well, Amato smoked the tires in the middle, so we have to do this. And there are some, although they don't do it often, there are some last-minute adjustments the crew chiefs can make to the timers on the clutch to control how aggressive that car is on the racetrack. So if we see some tire smoke out here consistently, back behind the starting line, there might be some crew chiefs making some last-minute adjustments.
Couple of veteran crew chiefs here. Dick LaHaye for Larry Dixon. Wes Cerny for Corey McLenithan. The winner advances to meet Joe Amato. This is a peddler job all the way. Give it to Corey Mack. Again, not a pretty run. 564 at 261 miles an hour. And, of course, Dixon is a pretty good peddler if he has to be. But this time, Corey Mack, smoking and belching flame as he went, gets the win light.
You know, there's a lot of pressure on the drivers out here. And what Amato was talking about, the high track temperatures, is what's going to happen here. They leave the starting line. It looks pretty good as they take off from the starting line. But then we see tire smoke early. Then Dixon's car starts to smoke the tires, drop some cylinders. They're off and on the throttle. Both drivers are very aggressive. Just picture driving on ice at over 200 miles an hour. That's what these guys are faced with right now. Very, very difficult driving on this track.
Guy on the left of your screen, Corey Mack. See how close he got to the center line? If you go over the line, you're done. You're automatically disqualified. But he stayed on his side of the road. as the folks have flocked to the Pits and Manufacturers Midway opening day at the Strip in Las Vegas. Getting set to get back to work here at the Strip at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's a magnificent facility that's been built by Bruton Smith, and it's the racetrack where that man, Kenny Bernstein, would love to get back to victory lane. Was winless a year ago, hasn't won since late in 1998. We went behind the wheel with the Bud King to talk about that winless streak.
You know, I think that when you go into a dry spell, it has a tendency, obviously, to grate on everybody, and you become a little more frustrated across the board. But you can't let that affect your driving. You have to continue to try to drive the same way that you always have your entire life. And you hope that mechanically you can keep doing the things that are necessary to win. Your day will come if you keep hammering it hard enough and doing the right things. But you can't go up there and change your style. If you do, you'll never win again.
Any validity to that, Frank?
Well, I think that it's going to have a lot to do with Kenny getting back into the winning circle. All the best drivers out there believe consistency is the most important thing.
And think back, folks, if you're watching the telecast, or maybe you were down at Gainesville a few weeks ago, 6 runs in a row at Gainesville without smoking the tires. You got to go those rounds. That's the consistency he was talking about.
Yeah, consistency in the race car setup, and also consistency in your mind and how you approach the starting line and what you do in your routine. And that's the kind of stuff that Kenny has to do in order to get back on that winning track.
And of course, closest to you, that's the Exide machine driven by that man, Tony Schumacher. If you're just joining us along the way, he was bounced in round 1 by Tim Gibson, but in the post-run inspection, Gibson's fuel outside of the parameters, Schumacher reinstated. But up everyone goes in smoke, but Bernstein's going to pedal it on to the win. And Kenny was not particularly excited to hear that Gibson had been crossed out and Schumacher had been reinstated. But nevertheless, Tony, red lights, and then even though Kenny goes up in smoke, he's got the W.
Yeah, you're right. At this point, it's kind of a moot point, of course, because Kenny Bernstein's going in here. Now, if you watch Schumacher's car carefully, it lifts the front end straight up off the starting line, and he kind of stepped off it on the throttle, and that can be a real problem. That is an error that was made right on the starting line and caused the car to red light. Now, a great break for Bernstein, because a couple hundred feet out, he smokes the tires, gets off the throttle. That's when it regains traction, gets back on it, it smokes the tires again. Pretty much a horrible run for him. Probably will lose lane choice in the next round of competition, but at least he's going there.
He is going against either the man you see there, Selzy, or Doug Coletta. This is going to be a good matchup right here. As Alan Johnson says, time to light this baby and go to work. Gary Selzy. You talk about a team that has been loaded for bear. So to that man, Doug Coletta. Both teams have come out of the box here in the year 2000 extremely well prepared. And they have really played it out so very well here early in the season. Meanwhile, the far end, Steve Evans.
Well, Kenny Bernstein, on this racetrack, when you leave the starting line, you have to be ready for anything, and you were.
Yeah, you really do. It's tricky. It's hot. It's gooey out there, and it's tough right now. It's going to take quite a bit to get through this race, obviously, but we're tickled for the Budweiser King team. They did a great job, my crew boys.
Semifinal bound is the Bud King.
Against either the number 2 man in points, Gary Selzy, or the number 6 man in points, Doug Coletta. Gary Selzy telling me earlier today that he won out here twice at the old Las Vegas Speedway Park facility when he ran Top Alcohol Dragster and Top Alcohol Funny Car back in the early to mid 1990s.
You know, Gary's going to have to be careful. They have to have made some adjustments on the car from the first round of competition, although they ran very, very fast at 467. When the car left the starting line in the first round, it actually had some haze, some visible smoke off the tires, and then it kind of dried up. They've switched lanes for the second round of competition, but I think if his crew chief, Alan Johnson, doesn't make some adjustments, they may be getting bit by that tire smoke.
The Pomona winner, Gary Selzy, against the Gainesville winner, Doug Coletta. Sponsored locally by the MGM Grand. Let's watch. Again, hazing on both sides of the course, and there goes the blower belt and all sorts of parts from Doug Coletta's machine. The win goes to Selzy with a 480 at 283 miles an hour.
It looks to me as though they absolutely went back in and made the car a little soft. They had an 8.87 60-foot time. The car looked much more controllable leaving the start line. It didn't have the haze off the tires. Again, they smoked the tires a little bit further down the track, but Alan Johnson, the crew chief, he's a bright guy. That's why they've won a Winston championship in the past. They can go back in and make those adjustments to make sure the car sticks. A pretty good side-by-side drag race.
Both drivers nursing it to the finish. Lane choice goes to Selzy over Kenny Bernstein. On the other side of the ladder, you've got lane choice for Amato over Corey McLenithan. When we come back, the funny cars are next. TNN Sports is with you on opening day of the Strip at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It is a magnificent day here in the area just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. Eli Gold, Frank Hawley, Steve Evans. Don't forget, folks, you can find out who has the dead man's gun this week. It's set in the Old West and has big stars, and it's all a part of TNN's Action Wednesdays. Check it out every Wednesday, 8 Eastern and Pacific, right here on TNN. Steve Evans at the far end. Let's button things up on Top Fuel.
Gary, I'm not sure Christy Yamaguchi could skate down this racetrack right now. It is treacherous.
Oh, I'm telling you what, Team Winston smoked the hoops pretty good on that one, but I did not care. When I saw Tony red light, I had to stay after it. And, you know, we got by it, and I'll tell you what, it's a good feeling to know that other car went out, let me tell you.
Gary, another driver not happy to see Schumacher back in, but let's stress that no one's saying Gibson was cheating at 90.4%. They're just saying, guys, you've got to monitor your fuel more carefully. We're serious about this rule.
That's true. I mean, to cheat, I mean, you're going 94%, 95%. This is just a calculation error.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys aren't out here to try and cheat. They do want to get as close to that 90% as possible, though.
Jim Epler on board with him against Al Hoffman. Going for Jim Dunn. The Moon Eyes team up in smoke, and Jim Epler's taking it on to the semifinal round. That's going to be a 5:02 for the man out of Phoenix, Arizona. 2:97 for Jim Epler.
I'll tell you, one of the things that's so impressive about a 5:02 out of the funny car is they don't have as much rear weight as the top fuel dragsters, and the fuel dragsters are spinning the tires. I thought it'd be even worse for the funny cars. You can see Jim Epler in there, his left hand in there, fighting on the steering wheel to keep the car in the center of the track. But an absolute fabulous run for the funny cars because of the fact that they don't have those huge rear wings and as much weight on the rear wheels. I would have expected even more tire smoke. So the Epler crew, Dale Armstrong and those guys, they're looking good right now.
Epler losing in round one at Gainesville. 9th in points. Puts himself in a position to pick up some valuable Winston points here today. As this fan crowd looks on, and I'll tell you, this is a magnificent turnout here, and we hope you can make your way to an upcoming NHRA event, but if not, just keep it right here on TNN Sports. We will be with you from just outside of Houston, Texas next weekend, the O'Reilly Nationals. Then from Richmond, Virginia, Atlanta, Georgia. We'll be with you in the month of May at Dallas, and of course later in the season, up with the Colonel at Brainerd, then the U.S. Nationals and Heartland Park in Topeka. All of that coming up here on TNN Sports. This will be an intriguing matchup. Tony Pedregon against a man who in his second event has become the #1 qualifier, Todd Payton out of Brantford, Ontario, Canada.
A fellow Canadian. I was born and raised just a little ways away from Todd Payton, and have watched him in his entire career, and he spent a lot of time. He's a newcomer to Nitro, but not a newcomer to drag racing. He spent a lot of time in the alcohol funny car category and has won a lot of big races, so he's a pretty savvy driver for a young guy.
Won a couple of IHRA championships, 5-time Canadian Drag Racer of the Year, and now to a many-time American Drag Racing Broadcaster of the Year. So Steve.
Hey, tremendous. A 5-0 from the Big Red Machine. Its debut weekend. That was impressive.
That is impressive. How about that for the WWF fans? This Big Red Machine, ever since we put this new paint job on, has been just tremendous. And Tolliver, unfortunately, went out first round, so he's back there really hyping this deal up. And, hey, the main thing is WWF is in the semifinals, and Stewart and Mans are just doing a tremendous job qualifying. The whole deal's just been on a string.
Okay, Jim Epler.
He is all excited talking about Terry Manger, John Stewart, the guys who handle the crew chiefing. And there is the youngest of the Pedregon brothers, Tony Pedregon, in the Syntec machine, driving for John Force. Tony coming in as the number 8 qualifier against the number 1 qualifier, Todd Payton. A lot of skating again, and give the win to Tony Pedregon at a 5:01 and an impressive 301 miles an hour. He really beat him significantly at the start. The reaction time of 45, a 4:58 to a 53 for Payton.
Well, one of the things that Pedregon's run looks so good is he actually deep staged, and that's where you pull a little deeper into the staging lights. The pre-stage light went out. Now that's going to make his reaction time kind of artificially look better, but what's so impressive is it makes the reaction time look better. The ET looks slower, so that 5:01 is probably a high 490, which is a fabulous run.
So an impressive run for Tony Pedregon. He will run off against either Tim Wilkerson or John Force. You'll be seeing that. Plus, upcoming in moments, Dean Scusa and Ron Capps back to the strip after this. Burnouts just wrapping up. John Force and Tim Wilkerson as we welcome you back to the SummitRacing.com Nationals. We are here at a simply magnificent racing facility. Over the years, you've seen events here at Las Vegas, from the big track next door, or the Pennzoil World of Outlaws, and the dirt track just behind that grandstand. And this is opening day here for the NHRA Winston drag racing teams. Far end, Tony Pedregon. He's advancing.
Yeah. And he got a big hug from his crew chief, John Medlin. What's your secret, young man, 5:01?
Well, the secret's Medlin and this attack team over here. Thank Syntec, and really we're racing a tough racetrack out here. I rolled in a little deep and it ran 01. We might need it if we have to race Superman, but that's not a bad number for deep staging.
And it feels like it may be cooling off a little bit. That could be good news.
And Superman, of course, the Castrol GTX car in the far lane there. John Force, there you see a close-up this weekend wearing the Superman insignia. There you see, well, that looks like John Force. At least he'll say it does.
Force has a beard now, and I've
know.
never seen Superman with a beard. I have no idea what's going on.
And there's Tim Wilkerson, who won in Chicago last year. He's got a handful here against the number 2 man in points, John Force, the winner earlier this season at Firebird. He's got a chance. Wilkerson to pull the upset. Give it to Wilkerson as John Force at about the 330-foot mark lost traction of 5:05 at 279 miles an hour. The Kenworth colors advancing to the semis.
Well, we're starting to see a pattern here, I think, Eli, and that's going to be that a lot of the cars are going to favor the right side of the racetrack. Force got off the start line pretty good, but ran into a little bit of trouble. Down the track, it started to shake the tires. It would spin. You see the body kind of drop down and pick back up. That's as he gets off and on the accelerator pedal. Wilkerson, on the other hand, was doing a fine job. As John Force is over there having to get off and on the throttle, he's just got that pedal to the metal. He's keeping the car in the center of the track. Near the end of the track, you can see some orange flame out. It means that it's damaged the engine. There's some problems there. A little bit of oil smoke out the back. That's not going to be a problem for him to fix the next round of competition, but it certainly slowed the car down at the other end of the track.
So Tony Pedregon will have lane choice over Tim Wilkerson, but trust me, Wilkerson doesn't care. He's just happy to be around for the semifinals. And now here's a good matchup coming up right now, as Dean Scusa and Ron Capps will be squaring off. Hey, how about the upset, Steve? A big one.
Nobody gets more excited than the man from the land of Lincoln. How about it, huh?
Oh, man, spectacular, spectacular. I seen a lot of Castrol out in front of me there. I was a little worried, but my old Pawnee actually hung in there. You know, we got a saying, no Fords in the finals. That's our deal this year. So just trying to be consistent, trying to go down the racetrack for our folks at Sioux City Kenworth. Can't be happy for our performance, but tell everybody at home hello. Thanks.
He's going to meet a tough Ford in the next round.
No doubt about that, as Tony Pedregon is on the horizon. The burnout for Ron Capps, who advanced out of round number 1 with a win over Bruce Sarver. Ron Capps, career-wise, 8 wins and 14 final round appearances, and I tell you, this is the first time that he has been sky high. You know, you take a look at what this year has been like. It really is spectacular. As a matter of fact, we talked with Ron just the other day, the fact that now he's working with the Snake and Ed the Ace McCullough, and he said, quite frankly, Eli, this year has almost been too good to believe.
My life is unbelievable, and you know, it's got to be cliche, 97, oh, I'm living a dream, and honest to God, that's it. I got a beautiful house, I got a great family, and I embarrass Snake sometimes because I'll put him aside and I say, hey, I just have to tell you that I want to thank you for everything. And he goes, oh, shucks, you know, and he gets kind of embarrassed. I said, geez, you know, I'm getting paid good money to drive a race car. I get to wake up in the morning, show up, have Ed McCullough teach me how to drive, Don Prudhomme teach me how to drive, the best crew and best sponsors in the business, and I get paid to do it. And I swear to you that every day I wake up, I can't believe it.
Capps against Scusa to advance to the semis. Good drag race, but smoke comes out of the header pipe for Ron Capps. The win goes to the king of the burnouts, Dean Scusa, a 5:05 at 294 miles an hour. Here's a guy who has a journalism degree from Ohio University, and I believe he's about to write a heck of a story here today.
Well, that maybe helps Scusa with some of those great interviews. But you can see here from inside the funny car, you can see the parachute handles flopping to the left there or up to the right of the screen. He reaches up, puts the chutes out. Driving these cars is one of the most exciting things on the planet anybody could do.
So we've got our matchups all set now with Tony Pedregon against Tim Wilkerson, Epler and Scusa. That's going to be a good matchup coming up later as we continue from Lost Wages. Back here in Las Vegas, how about 7,000 horsepower coming at you? 40 times that of your average street car. 0 to 100 in 0.8 of a second. That's the ride that man's going to have, Joe Amato. And across the lanes from him, the MBNA colors for Corey McLenithan, currently 9th in points. I'll tell you, this is a wild ride, Top Fuel.
Well, they're the fastest accelerating vehicles on the planet Earth, and out-accelerate the space shuttle by almost twice.
They will pull, these drivers will, 5 Gs when they launch, and I guess conversely a negative 5 Gs when they deploy the chutes.
Actually, they stop even harder than when they accelerate, so it's quite a ride down the track. But in order to get a fast ride, the crew chiefs here are going to have to have made some adjustments after the last round of competition, Eli, because we remember both these cars had some traction problems.
And that's one thing we've been seeing throughout all of the competition, even when the Federal Mogul teams have been out there. Some of the alcohol-burning machines have had trouble getting a hold of the racetrack now. I just stepped outside during one of the commercial breaks just to get a feel myself. It's well over 90 degrees now. It's gotten quite hot.
Yeah, and that makes the track slippery, and you know the black asphalt down there can get well over 100 degrees. Amato said earlier it was about 125. That's going to cause poor traction, and that's what they have to be able to compensate for.
Wes Cerny says, Corey Mack, you're all set. Jimmy Prock tells the same to Joe Amato, the crew chiefs. Let's see who advances to the first ever finals here in Las Vegas. Good launch for everybody. Good drag race. Give the win to Joe Amato. 476 to a 74 for Corey Mack. 476 at 298 miles an hour.
This is the closest drag race we've seen in the entire event. In fact, the margin of victory was just 1/1000th of a second as they took off from the starting line. Amato got the jump by a lot, about a couple hundredths of a second. At 330 feet down the raceway, they were almost at a dead heat. This is one of the races where the drivers are not even going to be able to tell who won the drag race. The crew chiefs did an excellent job. They got the cars performing well, a good side-by-side race, but this is one that needs that CompuLink electronic eye to actually pick out a winner.
So Joe Amato, who had lost in the second round at Phoenix and Gainesville, has now advanced to the finals here in Las Vegas. Hey, are you a golfer, Frank?
No, I did a little bit when I was a kid, but not for a long time.
Well, I'll tell you about a great golf combination that's out there. talking the other day to Kenny Bernstein. He gets out there, goes golfing with Gary Scelzi and Joe Amato. He'll tell us about it behind the wheel.
You know, Gary Scelzi and Amato and I are good friends, and we play a lot of golf together. And I tell you, when we get out there being very competitive with each other, it's a lot of fun. It all depends on what kind of day it is, whether it's a happy day or a bad day. But we bet a lot of money, and it usually goes like this. Scelzi usually pays me, and I usually pay Amato. That's the way it usually works. But we're very competitive, and it's a lot of fun. It's wonderful to do it.
Kenny Bernstein, the Bud King. Meanwhile, as he awaits the command to launch that candle, let's go to Steve Evans.
What's all about? Joe Amato, 1/1000th of a second difference. How fun was that?
Oh, that was great. You know, I could feel him over there, and, you know, after the finish line, he went by me. I didn't know if he was there or not because my helmet has blinders on it. But, you know, for Tenneco Automotive and Dynamax and Valvoline, Keystone Key Park, this is what it's all about. The driver has to earn his payout here. And I told my wife coming into this race, I'm going to have to try and drive the wheels off because these kids are pressing, and we're having some fun out here now.
Oh, boy. What a final round it could be. Doesn't matter who he races.
I wonder what the real truth is on who's up on that golf game. I guess we'll follow that storyline.
Well, we might have to find out from each driver. You think there's any chance the story might change from driver to driver?
You mean you guys don't always tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So help me God, I do?
We try to.
So you do. Kenny Bernstein, the #1 qualifier here this weekend at Top Fuel. And he has drawn a tough assignment, Big Red, Gary Scelzi. This is going to be interesting because Scelzi, as we said earlier in the show, began in spring training as that whole team probably is best prepared as anybody was showing up in off-season testing, and they've just carried it now, got the win at Pomona, and #2 in points. They're ready. They're loaded.
And they've got an opportunity now to move over that right side of the racetrack. It's really difficult to tell why one lane will end up developing better traction than the other. Sometimes it can be just a perception where you get the better cars running on one side and they automatically perform better. But Scelzi right now has got to feel good that he got lane choice and got to move to the right side of the track.
Although, for what it's worth, watching some of the Federal Mogul runs a while ago, they were having a lot of trouble on the right side.
Yeah, it depends on the category. Sometimes, historically, it's always been strange that the fuel cars always like the opposite lane that the pro stock cars do. So it depends a lot on the setup of the car, the type of vehicle that's being raced. But right now, Scelzi's got to feel like he's in a pretty good position.
You've known Bernstein for years. Is he pressing at this point because
Bernstein's a pressing person
when
Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah. But can you overdo it? Can you over-engineer? Let's see if they have. Another great drag race. And give the win to Kenny Bernstein. He's going to the finals over Scelzi. A 471 to a 472. It'll be 27/100ths of a second, the margin at the finish.
Well, you were asking if he's a pressing guy, and he pressed Scelzi on the starting line there. A 470 to a 5.0 reaction time, 300ths of a second. They also ran 100th of a second better at the finish line. So a very good run, and Kenny's the kind of guy that's aggressive. It's like Amato, talking about these young guys coming out and getting us. These guys have been around a long time. They're veterans. They're not going to make the mistakes.
Enjoy the ride. It's over that quickly in 4 7/10 of a second. So Kenny Bernstein and Joe Amato. Who's going to yell 4 when that one gets set to go? A couple of golfing buddies, a couple of vacation buddies. They've spent a lot of time together with families away from the track. They're going head-to-head as we head towards the finals later in our coverage. The funny cars about set to roar into your living room as we welcome you back to the Strip. And there is a man who is hoping to be able to pull off a tombstone pile driver against his opponent, Jim Epler, facing Dean Scusa. Even trying to outdo Dean in the drags in the burnout area, and of course we all know that Scusa is the king of the burnouts. Meanwhile, Steve Evans is caught up with Kenny Bernstein at the far end.
Well, Kenny Bernstein, you left on Selzy, you beat him to the finish line, and you've got lane choice. That's the hat trick.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for more than that. That's a great team over there, the Winston and those guys. And when the Bud Keem race them, you have to be ready, and our team did a great job. I want to say something for Robert Goodwin, our buddy. Hope he pulls through all this. And I ran it so far past the finish line, I think I broke it.
He's loving that new Brett Hadman car, brand new here at the Strip.
As Steve said earlier, he hadn't even sat in that machine until they cranked it up here this weekend. This is going to be the 12th time that Jim Epler and Dean Scusa have gone head-to-head. Epler has the edge, 6 wins to 5 for the Matco team.
Well, Epler's part of that Tolliver team, of course, this year, and they've got Dale Armstrong on board as a crew chief with Tolliver, and I know they've got a lot of talent over there on the Epler side, too. But that unity of all that talent base over there, the two-car team, is really, really starting to prove itself this season. And I think that not only Tolliver, but I think you're going to see Epler have some pretty good drag races and start to move up significantly in that point standings.
I didn't know you were as big of a wrestling fan as you were telling me before.
Oh, huge.
Yeah. Especially, folks, when he showed up in spandex and a Speedo, I said, I've seen enough. Epler and Scusa. Epler pulling away and throws his opponent into the turnbuckle. Jim Epler's gone to the finals with a 5-second run at 302 miles an hour.
That 5-second flat on an afternoon like this is going to serve notice that he's ready to go into the final round. They've got a great program put there together. And a good drag race. Both the cars ran over 300 miles an hour. You can see in this shot here what it's like to drive one of these Nitro Funny cars. A lot of steering wheel action to keep that car in the center of your lane.
After losing in the opening round at Gainesville, Jim Epler's in the finals here in Las Vegas. Against whom? Well, that's going to be the question that has to be answered upcoming here in just seconds. It will be either that man who has his sights set on the finals, Tony Pedregon, or Tim Wilkerson, who will be across the lane from him. Meanwhile, the far end, Steve Evans standing by with Jim Epler off that great run.
The snack bar and rub mustard in his eyes. My favorite wrestling move.
Hey, I'll tell you what, whatever it takes. How about that, Las Vegas odds makers, 25-1. Never underestimate WWF. Into the final round. Now we got to carry the torch, but hey, the big good news is moving up in the points, and Kane will be proud, I'm sure.
And our good buddy Bob Fry put $50 down on that, Eli.
Of course, Kane eats sandwiches bigger than Bob Fry, so you know, I'm sure Bob will be very proud as well. Tony Pedregon. You know, he made an offhand comment there, Epler did, but some of the race and sports books out here at the hotels and casinos carrying this event on the big board here this weekend.
That's exciting. I don't know. I didn't get in on any of that action.
No, I didn't either. I was just looking for medicinal purposes. Burnout for the Kenworth team and Tim Wilkerson. This track has held up pretty well today in 90-degree temperatures. Tony Pedregon was talked to earlier in the day about how the strip at Las Vegas is coming along.
They really built it right, and again, once it is conditioned with a lot of rubber, I do believe it's going to be one of the best on the circuit. Even with the warmer conditions that we have, the cars are going just fine to about 1,000 feet. Then you're having to drive it a little bit because they start slipping the tire, and again, that's just because it doesn't have a lot of rubber out there.
A man with 8 career funny car wins against Tim Wilkerson, who won at Chicago a year ago.
Now, Wilkerson just moments ago actually got to the starting line late. They roared up here. They were hurrying around the car. They obviously had a few problems making that call. We're going to have to find out if that's going to affect the car's performance.
You've got a buddy works for that team, don't you?
Yeah, a friend of mine named Fred Mandolini spent a lot of years racing alcohol. Actually helped me with one of the Miller Top Fuel cars a few years ago.
The guys are going to the finals. Pedregon pulling, and though he hazes it down the end, he'll hang on for the win at a 499, 301 miles an hour to a 509 for Tim Wilkerson.
And this was almost predicted, I think, on his last round of competition. I talked about him pulling in a little bit deep into the staging lights, which helps your reaction time, hurts your ET. But the last one would have calculated out without the deep stage as a high 490 run. And he stayed shallow this time and came up with a 499. They're going to be tough to beat in the final.
Well, Pedregon had already gone to the finals earlier this year at Pomona and lost there to Jerry Tolliver. Now he's in the finals in Las Vegas, facing Tolliver's teammate Jim Epler, as we continue from the Strip. Back with you here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Our first look in our telecast today of the Pro Stocks. Let's see how they're doing. Hey, it's been an all jag all the time kind of season. Winning at Pomona and Phoenix. Frank, he's been tough.
Well, they have. The Coughlin family's been tough in drag racing over the years, with Dad Jakes being a drag racer a number of years ago in all sorts of categories, but Pro Stock is where they've really started to make the reputation.
Now we're set for semifinal action. Let's see how these guys have gotten to where they are thus far today. You'll see who pulled off the win. A big win there for Troy Coughlin over the #1 qualifier, Ron Krischer, who had been strong throughout the weekend. Warren Johnson knocking off his son and then knocking off the guy to whom he provides engines, Richie Stevens.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier, what would Warren do? Sell an engine that's better than his engine to somebody else? And generally they don't. They keep the fastest ones for themselves.
That is Jeg Coughlin. You're looking at him right there. Known for his great reaction times. And as we said, he already won this year at Pomona. He won at Phoenix. And really has been very, very strong. We've got an onboard listen to the Jegs team.
On 4 feet.
See exactly what, if anything, they are saying one to the next.
The driver has to have a lot of concentration as opposed to the starting line, so quite often when they get talking on the radios as they approach the starting line, the banter will stop.
Getting set to go against the Cowboy, Mark Pollock out of Akron, Ohio. Sponsored by Summitracing. Here they go. Reaction time to Pollock. The battle is a good one. The power to Jag, and he's going to another final. Jag Coughlin at 707, 195 miles an hour.
A little bit of saving grace here for Mark Pollock. Although we lost around the competition, Mark's been struggling over the last year or so with his reaction times, and he had a great one there and left 0.03 of a second early.
So we've got one of our finalists in Pro Stock. We've got them both already set in funny cars. Steve is standing by at the far end with Tony Pedregon.
Tony Pedregon, I have been authorized to give you lane choice at 499.
Well, that's pretty close. I don't know that it really matters a lot. The other guys seem to be getting down that other lane, but really a tune-up's coming in right in the nick of time. Really want to try to pull this off for Syntec and Ford and MacTool. Auto Value, they've really been standing behind us, and Medlin, of course, and really like to win it for Force. But these guys are doing a tremendous job, and it'd be nice to win it.
And Force wants that WWF. You know that.
That is indeed the case. That has been a little sore spot all year for John Force, now trailing in points to the WWF team. Now can Troy Coughlin win here, knocking off Warren Johnson and join his brother in the finals?
Well, Warren's got to feel like this Coughlin family is really starting to gang up on him. And Dick Maskin is the crew chief for the Coughlins and starting to build that power. And it appears that he's an equal of Warren Johnson when it comes to making Pro Stock engine power.
One of the most remarkable stories, I think, that Warren Johnson has won a race and finished in the top 5 in points for 19 years in a row. Remarkable. Johnson on the left, Coughlin on the right. Reaction time to WJ. The power is for WJ. It'll be Johnson and Jag in the finals. 707 at 195 miles an hour.
707s on both sides of the racetrack. One of the really exciting things about Pro Stock competition is how close the racing is, often within a few thousandths of a second of one another.
And it's interesting, they always say that Warren not the best reaction time man, and here he beats the much younger Troy Coughlin when the light turns green. So the matchup is a good one. Warren Johnson, Jag Coughlin. When we come back, we've got more coming your way. Don't leave us now. It's just now getting good. We continue from Las Vegas after this. Not only have there been thousands of fans here at the Strip at Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend, but so too the World Wrestling Federation, well represented. That guy in the middle, 7 feet tall, Frank. Hey, by the way, Arena Football kicking off on TNN this Thursday. The Arena Bowl champion Albany Firebirds taking on the Nashville Cats. Arena football, get it all, starting April 13th, 8 Eastern and Pacific, right here on TNN. I'll be there with Sam White, Jed Cunningham, Jill Arrington coming up on Thursday evening. You know, you never know who you're going to run into. We showed you the WWF folks there, and Frank Hawley is here. You never know who else shows up at an NHRA Winston drag race. That is Mike Tyson, the heavyweight champ of the world, many times over, here on Friday.
Mike Tyson, welcome to NHRA Winston Drag Racing.
Oh, I'm so ecstatic to be here. I'm here on the auspices. I represent a young man by the name of Lloyd Strauss. He's a young up-and-coming racer. We're both from Brooklyn, New York, and he needed sponsorship, and he's a personal friend of mine, and I was willing to sponsor him, and I'm so excited to be here.
Unfortunately, his rider failed to qualify this weekend, but I dare say we've got a new fan for the NHRA. Look at Pro Stock Truck. Bob Piniella surviving out of that side of the ladder right there, advancing to the finals here at the Strip at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And a good solid run for Randy Daniels, also making it to the finals here this afternoon. That's really become quite a competitive series. And two of the brightest stars in the series are meeting in the finals here today. Number 2 man in points, Bob Piniella, against that guy, number 3 in points, Randy Daniels.
You know, this truck series has really been a great stepping up point, and a lot of the drivers, in fact, both of these drivers came out of Competition Eliminator, and it gives them an opportunity to come up into a pro category, pro tree, you know, with a standard transmission, a clutch car, or a truck in this case, and kind of show what they've got, show their stuff, and hopefully you're going to see some of tomorrow's pro stock stars coming right out of the trucks.
Piniella winning at Pomona this year. Randy Daniels winning last time out in Gainesville. Randy has 3 career wins. Bob Piniella 5 career wins in Pro Stock Truck. Well, they've had some solid performances. If you're not familiar, Chevy S10s, Dodge Dakotas, GMC Sonomas, Ford Rangers, those are the eligible body styles. Normally aspirated engines with the 5-speed manual tranny, 2,300 pounds, 350 cubic inches. Very much a basic stock vehicle, if you will, or conventional stock.
Pro Stock trucks.
Here we go for the win in Pro Stock Truck. Piniella against Daniels, who had the whole shot. Piniella has got the win, 768 at 176 miles an hour. He wins at Pomona, and he wins today here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Well, it was some good horsepower that helped him. He actually was a couple hundredths of a second late off the starting line. A very good reaction time, mind you, a .432 second reaction time to a .416 for Daniels. But that horsepower made the difference, and by the time they got to the 8th mile down the track, Pinella's truck was starting to outpower Daniels, and that was the big deciding factor, is that horsepower.
So the defending Pro Stock Truck champion in NHRA Winston drag racing competition pulls down the win here at the Strip on this inaugural weekend. And of course, coming in number 2 in points, that's really going to help him in the chase for the championship down the road, Steve.
And to the winner go the spoils. Paul Sergi here, president of Summitracing, with the beautiful championship trophy. You had to drive around him.
Yeah, you know, I seen him out there in front of me, and God, thank God for this S10. All my crew, Mike Stryker, Jeff Gracia, Steve, everybody today, Wes Whitaker, everybody did such a great job. Without them, man, I couldn't be here.
Without Jackie Beck, we couldn't have a winner's interview.
Miss Winston, Jackie Beck. Now it's time for Pro Stock Bike. And let's see how Tony Mullen advanced. That Matt Hines matchup with Mullen was an interesting one, Frank.
Well, Hines actually really didn't do anything wrong. The bike picked the front wheel out of the stage beam and gave him a red light. It really wasn't his fault.
And Angel Sealing advancing through that end of the bracket, getting past Craig Treble to advance to another final. And there is Tony Mullen. What a team that has developed into being. Of course, with a career win, but that's another one of those fine efforts that's put together by a guy out of the Philadelphia Eagles, Troy Vincent, who really has become a major supporter in this series.
Yeah, I saw Tony Mullen a number of years ago back at the school. Great young star, and going to do quite well.
number 2 in points against number 4 in points, Angel Seelig. The advantage for Tony, but Mullins has problems. Angel is going to take her first win of the year 2000. Tony Mullen had the jump with a 4:27 reaction time, but obviously problems right off the bat. It just passed the 60-foot mark, and Angel had a 7:40, 177-mile-an-hour win.
Well, Angel has done a great job here today. She didn't want to red light in the final, wanted to be conservative, and a 4:30 reaction time was a great number to have because she rides for George Bryce, who owns Star Performance Parts and Star Racing, and they're one of the best pro stock motorcycle teams in the country. So she knew she had that star power to get her to the winner's circle as long as she made no mistakes.
Career win number 11 after 5 wins a year ago. So Steve, Angel's picking right back up where she left off in 99.
And a thrill for Jackie Beck, Miss Winston, to give the trophy, Paul Sergey has the trophy actually, to a good friend of hers. A nice, comfortable 4.3 light. That was smart racing.
Oh, God. I don't even know what to say. I love Las Vegas before I came here, and I really love it now. Can I hold the trophy, please? Oh, man. You know, after losing the championship last year, winning this first race this year it's like the first one that I ever won. Thank you. This track is awesome, by the way.
Viva Las Vegas.
Indeed, Viva Las Vegas.
She needs to be a little bit more enthusiastic.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Not quite as ebullient as you'd like to see in Victory Lane. Now, here we go with what has been an interesting battle. Jag Coughlin winning at Pomona, winning at Phoenix against Warren Johnson, a 26-year veteran who won at Gainesville. And you know the story. He and John Force both chasing that victory record, that outstanding record that has been around for a number of years, trying to put their name in the record books. Bob Glidden, the man that everybody is looking at. 80 wins already for Warren Johnson in his career, trying to bypass the 85.
You can see how much smoke builds up in the cockpits of those cars when they're backing up, and that's why they open the door to get that smoke out.
Listening in to Jag's radio as they get set for this final round run. Again, Warren Johnson earlier today had some great reaction times.
Proves that the older you get, you don't get slower, right?
Indeed. Has 80 wins, as we say, trying to bypass Bob Glidden's 85, the 5-time Pro Stock champ.
If you were coming into this race and you wanted to pick the best Pro Stock final possible, I think you'd pick this one right here with Coughlin and Warren.
And Jag beat Warren Johnson at the 2000 season opener at Pomona. So they've gone at it many times and already this year. Let's see who takes home the hardware from Las Vegas. Staging game.
Well, Warren tends to do that sometimes. He'll want to hang back, but Jaggy goes in first.
Now Johnson is in. Here we go. Quickly, but Johnson recovers. Is it going to be enough? Here comes Jag, and he's going to keep this juggernaut going. 7:07 at 195 miles an hour.
I think we got the next lap on this. Good job. Good job. Hold the motor down pretty hard low here.
Let's watch it again.
Off the starting line, both pretty good reaction times, but Jag had a couple hundredths of a second lead. Warren's car actually 60-footed a little better, but down in the middle of the course, that Dick Maskin power started to take over. He had a mile-an-hour advantage and a couple hundredths of a second at the 8th mile.
13 career wins and 18 trips to the finals. Here it is again.
This isn't what Warren Johnson wanted to see. You can see as he left the start line, his car wiggled around. And so although we see nitro funny cars do that occasionally, that's very unusual for a Pro Stock car. He might have had some problems initially.
And remember, Jag has one of our onboard cameras.
Off the starting line, moving that shifter back and forth, and he actually has an electronic light in there that flashes that tells him when to make the shift into the next gear.
Now Steve has Mr. John Hedges, some Summit Racing, and Jag is there as well.
Jeg is here as well. What is it with this team at altitude tracks? You just dominate. If it's Denver, Phoenix, and now here.
I tell you what, Dick Maskin and his whole team at Dart Machinery's just got a tune-up for it. We've been working real hard the last couple of years, and we struggled in spots, but what can I say? And everyone at Team Jegs has done an excellent job this weekend. Beautiful facility. Summit Racing put on a great race this weekend, and my hat's off to them. And this is going to be an excellent race for us in the future, and we can't wait to come back every year.
Congratulations. Let's take a look at the Pro Stock points, Eli.
Let's do so. Jeg was leading the points coming in, so this is going to further cement that lead, Frank.
That isn't what Warren Johnson wanted to see.
There you see Troy Coughlin, Jeg's brother. And now the funny cars there to the staging lanes. Then top fuel before we wrap up. Welcome back, everybody, to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway and the Strip. Remember, quick mention, if you loved the movie The Magnificent Seven, and so many folks did, now you'll love the weekly series, The Magnificent Seven. They hand out justice every Wednesday night at 10 Eastern and Pacific. It's a part of TNN's Action Wednesdays. Check it out Wednesday nights. There is Jim Epler, has not won on the NHRA Winston Drag Racing funny car scene since 1993. Almost a couple of times last year, though, Frank.
Do you think he wants it very badly, going that long winless?
Now, let's talk about last year. Remember, he red-lighted at Indianapolis.
Yeah.
He couldn't get out of the finals at Houston. What's he think?
Well, I think that what he ought to be thinking right now is let's not make any mistakes. It's a tight drag race. This is not a give-me, but he has to be on time on the starting line. But what he really doesn't want to do is start thinking a lot about the fact that he's gone 7 years winless, because that sometimes can put enough pressure on a driver where he doesn't perform better under pressure. It actually can bother him. So if I was helping or advising Jim right now, I'd say, hey, just take it easy, have some fun, and go up there and do a good job for us.
There's John Medlin telling Tony Pedregon, you're all set. Tony is 4th in points. Epler is 9th in points. Someone will be a first-time winner in the year 2000 here in just about 5 seconds. Smoke from Pedregon. Epler's going back to victory lane. How about it at a 498, 302 miles an hour? Tony had him, and then the smoke.
Boy, I'll tell you, the car left the starting line soft enough where I can't even believe that it recovered that well to run a 498. The team did a fabulous job on setting the car up for the final round.
Let's watch it again. You'll see the red machine, Epler.
They get out in the middle of the course, and Tony's way out in front, a couple car lengths, but then he has some real problems. Here again at the start, Tony's car's moving hard. It looks like it's going to repeat and run a 4-second run, but then he has some trouble down in the middle of the track. Reaction time went to Tony Pedregon by a couple hundredths of a second, but when his car quit, there isn't anybody that was happier than Jim Epler to see that Pedregon car disappear.
Steve, be careful they don't throw you off into the turnbuckle or something.
They'll be Raising Cane in victory lane tonight. Jim Epler, great job. You saw a lot of that Castrol car for a few feet there.
Oh, you have no idea. I did see a lot of it. We haven't had a lucky round, and that was our lucky round. But I got to tell you something, for WWF, Kane, all these guys that support this thing, I mean, it's just been a dream deal. Jerry Tolliver, thank you for this opportunity, and it's going to be a fun year. I just got to tell you, this Castrol and WWF rivalry is going to get exciting.
Well, Sergio Summit has the championship trophy, the first one he's seen in 7 years.
And let's go with that man as the Mopar high performer of the event. You got it, Jim Epler. You are the man here today in funny car. Now, what does this mean in points? Remember, Tolliver, who led the points, did not get past the first round, though he does hold on to the lead over Pedregon, and Epler jumps from 9th to 5th.
That's great, having both the cars in the top 5.
So 4 of 23 events done for funny car. Top fuel is coming up before we put a capper on it from Las Vegas. The online automotive superstore, wrenchhead.com. You know, millions of replacement parts are available, performance parts and accessories. Plus, of course, what really attracts Frank Hawley's attention, free shipping. Wrenchhead.com. Parts online all the time.
Eli, as a racer, we go for anything that's free. You know that.
Broadcasters, too. On board with Kenny Bernstein, trying to make it a clean sweep of the weekend after being #1 qualifier. He's going against his good buddy, Joe Amato.
Now, remind me here, on the golf course, was Amato paying Bernstein or the other way around?
I think they all pay each other.
Okay, well, we're going to find out if there's any paybacks right now.
Getting set to go here in Top Fuel. Joe Amato, a 5-time NHRA Top Fuel champion, against Kenny Bernstein with 22 Top Fuel wins and 30 in Funny Car.
It's important that the guys win this final round, but I'll tell you, these guys are really close personal friends away from the racetrack, and that's got to take a little tiny bit of the pressure off it and make it a little bit more fun than it might be otherwise.
Let's see, final run of the day, Amato and Bernstein. Kenny Bernstein up in smoke. The Bud King, however, has got enough to keep it going. And Bernstein with a 490 at 282 miles an hour is back in victory lane, first time since 1998.
As they say, that wasn't pretty. Both cars lost traction as they got a little ways down the racetrack. Amato smoked the tires first, but then Bernstein followed shortly after.
Watch it again. Bernstein far side.
A good start. They got out, but then Amato smoked the tires, got off and back on. Amato at this point seeing Bernstein smoke the tires, so he's going to stand back on the gas, but in a few seconds, it was all over.
Couple of 5-time champs. And you see that smoke just bubbling off those big good years, but they're going to bubble off all the way to another trophy. Steve, it's about time for the King.
It is indeed. And how about the fans of Top Fuel? 4 races in Y2K and 4 different winners. Kenny, they're always sweet, but after a dry spell, particularly special.
Oh, it certainly is. It's no question about it. It's sweet for the Budweiser King team and Prolong Mac Tools. Winston Vegas, great. Bruton Smith, wonderful. I tell you, Little E, we're proud of you too, buddy. We had to get one after you won last week, and we're just really proud to be here. And I tell you what, it's been a great race, and anytime we race our buddy here, it's fun, but we hate it.
Good job, guys. A great tire smoking final.
Thank you so much. Great. All right.
Well, you got to be pleased for Kenny Bernstein back in victory lane. And you know, Frank, this racetrack really a showplace living up to its advanced billing.
It's absolutely beautiful. Great surrounding views of the mountains and the stands. A very safe race we've had this weekend, which is always great. And we see some new people or some people back in the winner's circle that haven't been here in a while, like Jim Epler. What a great weekend for him, and what a great place for his first win in a number of years.
But now it's time to pack up and head towards Texas. We will be with you next weekend for the 13th annual O'Reilly Nationals at Houston, Texas, 4:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, next Sunday right here on TNN Sports. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the inaugural race here at the Strip in Las Vegas. For Frank Hawley and for Steve Evans, I'm Eli Gold. See you next week in Houston. Till then, have a great week, and we thank you for your time. Good evening from Las Vegas.